What's up, guys? I just saw Justice League last night, and I am so excited to talk to you guys about it. So, let's get right into it. Justice League is about Bruce Wayne and Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman. They realize there is a big threat coming to Earth that could possibly destroy it, and so now they must recruit new members for a team that they're putting together to protect and save the world. So I just wanted to start off by saying this is one of my most anticipated movies of 2017, if you can't already tell. I thought Man of Steel was alright, but it was a little boring, and critics were a little mixed on it. I actually really liked Batman vs. Superman, and I'm in somewhat of the minority among fans, but the critics didn't really like it. Suicide Squad, I liked it when it first came out, and when I first saw it, but now having more time to reflect on it, I think it was just an movie that was very messy and rushed. Definitely a lot more than Batman vs. Superman, and critics didn't like Suicide Squad at all either. And then there's the diamond in the rough among fans, including me, and critics, Wonder Woman. So I think it's safe to say after one movie with mixed reviews and two movies with bad reviews, the future of the DCEU was riding on the success of Wonder Woman and this movie. And I can happily say that this movie, while it wasn't perfect, I still think it's a success, at least in my book. So let's start with the negatives first this time. So we hear a lot in the MCU that their villains are always the weakest element, and unfortunately I thought the villain in this movie, Steppenwolf, was pretty weak as well. I think Jeremy Jahns said it best in his review. He said it feels like we are just stuck watching our heroes fight the middleman instead of the main big bad villain. And it's true, just knowing that our heroes should be fighting Darkseid instead is kind of a bummer. I especially know it must be for all the huge comic book lovers out there, especially when they teased it in Batman vs. Superman that Darkseid would be here. But at the same time, I understand why they made Steppenwolf as the villain in this movie. Because for one, they don't want to blow their load all at once. I know they want to save a lot for future movies to build on the DCEU. Also, side note, the CGI on Steppenwolf was pretty bad. He looked like rubber. Other than Steppenwolf though, I thought the CGI was pretty solid. And now two, because ultimately this movie isn't about one of the biggest, baddest villains in DC. It's about seeing our heroes from the comics realize that they need to come together and work together for the very first time on the big screen. So when the real, possibly world-ending threat finally comes, they are ready and are a solid team. Another weak element was that it felt a little rushed at times, just at times, but it was nowhere near as bad as Suicide Squad. And I think that is obviously from, once again, studio meddling. Apparently Warner Brothers put out a last-minute mandate on this movie that said it had to be 2 hours or less. And because of that, the film just felt a little rushed at times. When are you going to learn, Warner Brothers? Do you really want another messy and disjointed film like Suicide Squad on your heads again? You seem like you learned your lesson with Wonder Woman by letting Patty Jenkins basically have full creative control, but then you backtrack with this movie by meddling again. What the fuck? This is a subjective weak point. It's not a weak point that I really found to be an actual weak point, but it could be to somebody else. And that is that you could tell with Zack Snyder having to step away because of the tragedy of his daughter's suicide. Joss Whedon was brought in to do extensive reshoots, and it's rumored to add a lot more levity and comedy to the movie, and it shows. The only part that I thought this was a little bit of a problem was this. With a movie that has such high stakes like the end of the world, you don't want the movie to be overly funny. Or else the stuff that is supposed to have a lot of weight and emotion to it won't, or the stakes won't feel important when they're supposed to. And I felt like that was the case sometimes in this movie. And I get it, the more levity there is, the more palatable it is for the wide general audience that these superhero movies are trying to appeal to. But sometimes you need that dark, brooding stuff that many people were complaining about in past DCEU movies to make the stakes actually have weight and feel important. But other than those few weak points, I thought the movie was still really good and a lot of fun. I definitely thought it was a way better movie than the critics obviously and unfortunately did. As of the time I am filming this, it has a 39% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I don't think that's fair. Hopefully in the next few days, after more people and more critics have seen it, the score will go up a little bit. Anyways, let's get into the characters really quick. Ben Affleck as Batman continues to be awesome, and one of my favorite live-action Batmans. He's definitely changed a lot since Batman vs. Superman. You could tell he feels guilty for Superman's death, and he's making changes in himself so he doesn't lose another friend in the future. He has a contingency plan for everything now. Henry Cavill as Superman. This is probably the best incarnation and representation of Superman in the DCEU so far. They got Superman perfect in this movie. And no, that's not a spoiler. We all knew that Superman was going to be back somehow in this movie, so come on. Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman continues to be a pleasant surprise for me. When I, and I know many others as well, heard that she was going to be the new Wonder Woman, I was a little apprehensive because I didn't think she was big enough or muscular enough to be Wonder Woman, especially in comparison standing next to Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill. But she is such a good actor and puts her all into the role that she has made me a believer that she is a good choice for Wonder Woman. Ezra Miller as the Flash was hilarious. The whole time he was acting like a little kid that was just so happy to finally be a part of a team and finally have friends. Jason Momoa as Aquaman was so cool. I really like this reimagining of Aquaman. I'm glad they made him more of a islander, surfer, tatted up badass. Because the version of him from back in the day during his animated series would definitely not have worked in live action on the big screen. He would have, in all honesty, looked and seemed like a huge pussy. And finally, Ray Fisher as Cyborg was really good. This is the first thing I've seen him in, and for him playing a literal robotic character, he actually had a lot of range, was able to convey many different emotions, and is all around just a really good actor. I didn't think I was going to be this excited to see him return as Cyborg in future DCU movies because Cyborg isn't my favorite character, but after that performance, I am excited to see him return as Cyborg, and he became one of my favorites. And a couple of final things that I noticed. The color grading and saturation in this movie is definitely a lot better than Batman vs. Superman. The colors are so much brighter, saturated, and vivid, and they're just so much nicer to look at. I thought the color grading and saturation was especially good on Superman's suit. The bright red and the beautiful royal blue looked perfect, just like how he looked in the comics. I'm also impressed that even with all the reshoots and basically 2 directors, this does feel like one cohesive movie. It doesn't feel like 2 separate visions mashed together into one movie. Anyways, that's all I really have to say. It's not a perfect movie, but it's definitely a step in the right direction for the DCU, and I definitely think it's a lot of fun and one that you should go see right away. I'm going to give Justice League a B+. By the way, stay until the end of the movie. There are 2 end credit scenes, one of which that's at the very end of all the credits that you don't want to miss. Finally, DC is giving us, the fans, what we wanted. End credit scenes. DC, thank you. So what if people say that you're just copying Marvel? At this point, you're not going to escape that criticism. No matter what you do, some people are going to inevitably say that you're just copying Marvel. So I say just embrace it and say fuck the haters. Anyways, guys, that's it for this week. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.